I'm joined by Lord Stephen Greenhalgh, former Deputy Mayor for Policing and Crime under Mayor Boris Johnson. A lot of Boris men in the room today. We've had, Stephen, yet another Louise Casey review. She's been doing this for 20 years, producing these reports. And if we listen to the headlines this morning on our radio and televisions, you know, the Metropolitan Police are institutionally homophobic, racist, transphobic. The thing needs to change immediately or all be broken up. I mean, I don't for a minute doubt there's some very bad eggs in the Met, as there are, frankly, in all walks of life. But I felt the whole thing was a total counsel of despair. But you were fortunate enough to have an embargoed copy of this report. You've had a chance to really understand it. What is she telling us?
Well, she's telling us quite a lot of sensible things, actually. So if you read the recommendations, they're not headline grabbing. They're sort out the vetting procedures, which no one can disagree with. They're, you know, we don't want to have police officers that are going to abuse their powers. There's also about how you deal with the rotten apples and you can get them out of the system. And that's a problem for successive commissioners, that the whole misconduct process is really difficult. I mean, I remember having meetings around particularly bad cases of corrupt officers and just trying to deal with pension forfeiture years after the event. So I think there are some hugely sensible reforms. They're just very technocratic. There are also some calls for governance reform, which, you know, I think really throws into question what the hell has the mayor been doing for the last 7 years. And one of the things is to set up a board, a policing board for London, which we actually had under Boris Johnson. It's called the MOPAC Challenge, a performance review meeting. He's completely dismantled that. He's also got rid of the key metric to determine whether the police are behaving properly with the public, which is public confidence.
Here's a very important point. I don't think most people watching and listening to this now understand what the relationship is between the Mayor of London and the Metropolitan Police. Please explain.
Yeah, it's very clear, and it's down to the reform of Nick Herbert, who's now in the Lords with me. He is the Police Reform and Social Responsibility Act. Mayor Khan is effectively the Police and Crime Commissioner for London. He has executive oversight to ensure that the Metropolitan Police Service is both effective and efficient. He has budgetary control over the Met. You can set very low key decision limits. He owns the buildings. I mean, this mayor has a huge amount of power and levers over the Metropolitan Police Service, but I don't think he can see a lever. He's done absolutely nothing.
Yeah, when it goes wrong,
he blames everyone else.
But he's nobody to be seen.
He's nobody seen. Yeah,
I haven't heard a single criticism of Mayor Khan today.
Well, I mean, that's what I found extraordinary, that here is a mayor that dismantled the performance framework that we used under Boris to increase public confidence in policing after the riots. If you remember, in 2011, it really plummeted. We got confidence up to two-thirds of Londoners, which is not great, but it's good enough that two-thirds of Londoners believe they were doing a good job, at least a good job. Now, fewer than 1 in 2 Londoners think the police are doing a good job. Trust has plummeted even further. So there's a real issue, and this man doesn't have the performance metric, he doesn't have the leadership qualities. I think the mayor's got to step up and take the hit.
Regardless whether it's the mayor or successive bosses of the Met, do you believe that the Metropolitan Police are institutionally racist, homophobic and transphobic?
Well, those are the headlines of today, and I frankly agree with the Commissioner, actually, and many of the other former police officers that think it doesn't help. The phrase institutional, what does that actually mean? The real question is, how do you deal with systemic problems? How do we deal with issues that, you know, like improving the vetting procedures, but not using these headlines that actually don't analyse the problem, and they just write a story for you. So I think, you know, let's have the clear idea of how the Met is going to reform, and do we believe that the current Commissioner is going to do that reform?
So reform,
and I believe he will,
rather than breaking it up. Well, which is what Casey kind of said.
Well, I have some sympathy, if we compare with the other great global city, of the idea of having clear lines of responsibility. If the Met holds national responsibilities, then they nod to the Home Secretary. If you're the police force for London, they nod to the Mayor. So perhaps clarifying those lines of responsibility and creating a national policing entity that is answerable to the Home Secretary and being very clear what the police service is for London. That's not really breaking it up, because the Met will still be a huge number of police officers.